The rain had just begun to fall when Daniel wandered into the narrowest street in town. Cobblestones glistened beneath the lantern light, and the air was thick with the scent of wet stone and earth. Daniel was a man who often walked aimlessly when his thoughts grew heavy, and that day his thoughts felt heavier than usual. He was a writer by profession, though the title felt hollow now. The words that once came to him like birds in flight had abandoned him months ago, leaving behind silence. His publisher had stopped calling. His apartment, filled with stacks of blank notebooks and unfinished manuscripts, felt like a graveyard of ideas. It was then he noticed the small shop with its faded sign, Antiques and Curiosities. The windows were fogged from the inside, obscuring whatever treasures lay within. Pushing the creaking door open, Daniel was greeted by the muted scent of varnished wood, dust, and forgotten stories. The shop was crowded, shelves stacked with clocks that no longer ticked, oil paintings with eyes that followed him, chipped porcelain, and the faint rustle of the past lingering in every corner. Daniel's attention might have drifted to a shelf of old books had his eyes not caught the small wooden box on the lowest shelf. It was unassuming, its surface scratched and weathered, but the faint carvings along the edge drew him closer. When he opened it, a subtle fragrance rose, lavender mixed with the must of time. Inside lay letters bound by a faded blue ribbon. "Ah," came the quiet voice of the shopkeeper, an elderly man with spectacles sliding down his nose. "That box was found in the attic of an old estate outside town. No one wanted it. Belonged to a family with history." Daniel hesitated, tracing the ribbon with his fingers. Something about the box stirred him, as though it had been waiting. Without questioning further, he bought it and left the shop, carrying with him not just an object, but the beginning of a journey. Back in his dimly lit apartment, Daniel placed the box on his desk. The rain tapped against the window in steady rhythm, like impatient fingers. His hands trembled slightly as he untied the ribbon, careful not to tear the fragile knot. The first letter was dated 1891. The paper was delicate, its ink browned with age. Yet the handwriting remained beautiful, flowing, precise, filled with the kind of care that modern haste had long forgotten. "My dearest Helen, each night I dream of your face, though I dare not say your name aloud within these walls. To love you is to betray the blood that runs in my veins, and yet to deny you would be a greater betrayal still. The world would call me mad, but I have chosen my madness in you." Daniel's breath caught. The voice of this unknown man spoke across a century, yet it felt intimate, urgent, as though written yesterday. He read on, each line layering desire upon despair. The letter ended abruptly, unfinished, as if written in haste. Daniel leaned back, pressing the fragile paper against his chest. For a moment he wasn't in his apartment, but standing in a candle-lit room with the letter's author, a man desperate enough to pour his soul into ink. And Helen, who was she? Her name alone carried mystery. A woman once loved so fiercely that a man risked everything to write to her in secret. The days that followed blurred into one another as Daniel devoured the letters. Each began with a greeting more tender than the last, and each revealed fragments of a forbidden love. The man, though unnamed, belonged to a powerful family. His duties were clear, his path mapped before he was born. Helen, by contrast, seemed to come from a life of simplicity. In one letter, he wrote of watching her in a garden, her dress catching the breeze as though she were part of the earth itself. You wore no jewels, yet I swear the stars envied you that night. My mother would call you common, but she does not know that your silence holds more nobility than her wealth ever could." Daniel could almost see them. Stolen moments in shadowed corridors, brief touches in hidden chapels, their voices hushed, though their hearts shouted. But along with tenderness came fear. "If they discover us, Helen, you will be the one punished, not I. They will call you names that strip the humanity from you. I would rather vanish from this world than allow them to harm you." Daniel closed his eyes. The words resonated too closely. He remembered the woman he had once loved, remembered how fear, distance, and pride had driven them apart. The letters awakened the ache he thought long buried. Curiosity turned into obsession. Daniel needed to know more. He went to the library, its marble steps slick with rain, its silence broken only by the turning of fragile pages. There he searched newspapers from the late 19th century, family records and diaries. Slowly, a picture emerged. The estate mentioned by the shopkeeper had once belonged to the Whitmore family, wealthy, influential, feared. The eldest son, Jonathan Whitmore, was whispered to have disappeared mysteriously in 1892. His name was carved into family trees, but abruptly cut short, with no mention of a marriage or descendants. Helen's name was harder to find. She appeared once in a local journal, described only as a young woman of uncommon beauty, seen leaving the Whitmore Gardens at twilight, eyes red with sorrow. The scandal was clear, though never spoken directly. A forbidden affair had burned brightly, then been extinguished, leaving only ashes and letters hidden in an attic until Daniel found them. As Daniel walked home with notes clutched to his chest, he felt both exhilarated and haunted. The lover's story had become entwined with his own life. Their words echoed his pain. Their courage shamed his silence. He began speaking to them as though they could hear. "Jonathan, you risked everything for her. And Helen, you loved despite knowing the cost. Why can't I?" The letters began to change him. He looked at strangers differently, lingered longer at the sound of laughter in the street. Life, once muted, felt louder. Their story was forcing him to confront his own, his losses, his fears, his refusal to love again. One night, after reading late into the hours, Daniel found a letter that had been tucked beneath the lining of the box. It was the last, written in a hurried, uneven hand. "Helen, my beloved, if you are reading this, then I fear the worst. They have discovered us. I must leave before dawn. Should fate deny us the life we dreamed of, know that my heart is yours until the stars burn out. And if these words survive, may they one day fall into the hands of another, someone who also seeks light in the shadows. Forever yours, J." Daniel sat frozen. The ink was smudged as if by tears. He realized Jonathan had likely vanished that night, never to return. Helen's fate was unknown. And yet, through the fragile paper, Jonathan's voice lived on, reaching across time to Daniel himself. Dawn broke pale and golden. Daniel placed the letters carefully back into the box, his heart no longer heavy with sorrow, but filled with strange calm. The lovers' story had ended in tragedy, but their words had survived, proof that love itself cannot be destroyed. He stepped outside, the morning air cool against his skin. For the first time in years, Daniel felt open. The letters had not just revealed a mystery, they had healed him.
The box remained on his desk, not as a relic of sorrow, but as a companion. Daniel began to write again, his pen flowing with life, his pages filled with love stories, not of endings, but of beginnings. And somewhere, perhaps in the silence between ink and paper, he believed Helen and Jonathan still lingered, no longer forgotten, but alive in the words they had left behind, and in the man who finally understood that to love is worth every risk.